There's physical courage and moral courage. So no matter what you do, make sure you're maintaining the moral courage. Sometimes saying the thing that should be said that nobody wants to hear is harder than returning fire when you're getting shot at. It's two different things. Never forget the standard that you upheld. And then the second piece is service doesn't end when you get out. So hopefully you can find a job that not only puts food on your family's table, but when you go to bed at night, you have a clean conscience. And regardless of what industry you're in, there's a way to do it. And regardless of where you work and, policies that may be outside of your control, just like in the military, you can still do the right thing.
Welcome to the 7 Eagle Group podcast, your home for inspiring stories, valuable tips, and great advice from hard-charging veterans so you can lead a more rewarding and lucrative post-military career.
All right. Hey, everyone. I know how I love to share inspiring stories of vets, and I got an amazing one today. This is Matt Hoff. He served in the Army, went to West Point, lives down in Atlanta now, and he's the CEO of a company called AS Medication Solutions, and they're the nation's leading provider of pharmaceutical dispensing. And we're going to learn all about that because I'm curious myself, but they improve access for patients, they lower costs, they make pharmaceuticals more within reach of patients. So love your mission. And Matt, thank you so much for coming on and telling us a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Well, I really appreciate it. Anytime we get to talk about my favorite topic, which is either myself or medication access, I always take up the opportunity for it.
In that order, right?
In that order, yeah.
Hey, so talk a little bit about growing up. Where did you grow up? What headed you down the path of joining the military? And
it's funny. I think there's basically no military in my family, with the exception of my two grandfathers were in World War II, but everybody's two grandfathers were in World War II. So
yeah, that was
yeah, they both served. They both served very honorably, but my grandfather on my dad's side was a naval gunner on the USS Kitty Hawk, and his claim to fame was he shot down a kamikaze. So that was the only real combat in my direct family. And then somehow I decided when I was a little kid, and I think there's a lot to be said about being a Reagan baby and getting raised on G.I. Joe, that I had it in me from when I was young that I wanted to go to the military. Yeah. And as I got older and learned more about it, you always want to be the best. And that's the hardest school to get into. That's where the best officers come from. I'm a big history nerd. I tell people I was a World War II dad when I was 6 years old. So just always reading the books and that kind of stuff. And, the same theme kept coming up all over again, which is they all went to the same school. So that's really what drove me to go there. And, I graduated from high school in 2003. So I remember walking between an English class and a, believe it or not, history of the modern Middle East at my high school when the first tower was struck, and then second tower came down right when we were supposed to have an econ test. And to this day, I remember that we had to take the test anyways. And it was just one of those, like, I'd already just started the application process. It's what I already knew that I was going to do. But, and it was a similar theme throughout the 4 years at West Point. It wasn't if you go to war, it's when you go to war and how many times. So just a very, very unique way about it.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in New York, and then the family, Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Nice.
And then we moved to New Jersey when I was a couple months old. So I make no stolen valor claims of being a New Yorker.
New Yorker.
Yeah,
what city in Jersey?
Demarest in Bergen County.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. And are your grandparents still alive?
No, they all passed about 15, 20 years ago. But yeah.
So they got to see, at least you'd sign up, right? And
on my mom's side, they both did, but they were they were in their 90s when it happened.
Now at
So,
the time, so yeah.
yeah, they may as well have thought that I was signing up
Gee,
to be a
yeah.
forest ranger or something. Um, but yeah,
Uh,
and then we moved around a bunch. So I went from there to Omaha, Nebraska, and then to Atlanta. So formative years were really in Atlanta, but
okay.
as my wife will say, I'm still a Yankee.
Yeah, yeah. What was your military experience like? Do you look back on it now and grateful you did it? Do you have
Oh
questions?
yeah. There's my brother's in right now. He's 10 years younger than me. And he went to Auburn and then he went and got a JD and the whole time he always debated doing it. And I kept telling him, Tom, there's a finite amount of time that you can join the
Yeah.
military, and then there's the rest of your life to regret not doing it.
Hmm.
So I loved as much as anybody could love their time at West Point. I loved it. It's definitely
Yeah.
not a normal school, and I could say pretty much any other institution would have been more
Right.
fun. But
Right.
it was a great time with great people. Had an interesting time as a lieutenant. Did an Iraq deployment. It was interesting. Volunteered to go to the 82nd. Really wanted to go to a high speed low drag unit. Um, we the deployment before mine, it was really like in the company of heroes. Those guys did some amazing things. There's books written about it. There's the class of officers that was the group above me. I mean, every single one of them was an absolute stud, and every single one of them was a war hero. And then I looked to my peers who went to Afghanistan, and they were the guys who were, really slugging it out when the Korangal was at its worst.
Hmm.
And, everybody kind of has the woulda, coulda, shoulda, but, I
Yeah.
went to Baghdad when it was post surge and it was relatively quiet and
Yeah.
very proud of what I did. We
Yeah.
definitely, I got a CIB still hanging on my wall. So I can say that I did something with my life, but compared to some of the other folks, it's just amazing what guys you kind of grow up with or folks who
Yeah.
are just like you are able to do.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you for everything you did, man. It's very impressive to me. Tell everyone a little bit about what was your transition like and did you know what you wanted to do after career-wise?
All I knew was I didn't want to be in the army anymore. I had some at the battalion command level, some bosses that were not exactly what you'd call up to the highest standards. So, um, that kind of drains you, and you learn a lot of good lessons from bad leadership.
Yep.
And I figured there was other things I could be doing. Transitioned out, but I think a lot of people have that hard time when you identify yourself as a service member, and then all of a sudden one day you're a former service member. And I just remember the first day that I walked into my job at Home Depot's corporate headquarters. They handed me the ceremonial orange apron that everybody gets and showed me my cubicle, and a little part of my heart broke.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great organization. I love my time there, but it just wasn't what I thought what I'd be
Yeah.
doing with my life. But that transition out of the military, at least back then, I've heard that it's better now with things like SkillBridge and there's support networks through it. But it was abrupt and it was rough. But
Yeah.
luckily for me, and if I had to give one piece of advice, the weekend I got out of the army, I moved from Columbus, Georgia to Atlanta. That Sunday night, I had my first mixer for my MBA program. Monday morning was my first day at Home Depot. So I
Oh,
think
wow.
people off ramp and they go from 100 to 20 miles an hour and really get self reflective of what have I done with myself.
Yeah.
You run at the same speed, you're not going to notice that you're slowing down. And
Right.
before you know it, you're so busy living your life that you don't
Yeah.
have any chance to regret
Reflect on that.
what you
Yeah,
changed.
that's a good point. It's sort of like that downtime. Oh, I'll take 3 months off and you're wrestling with your thoughts nonstop, right? So that's a
Yeah,
good.
and I think a lot of folks especially when you grow up in that military life.
Mm.
You don't have that. You don't go on vacation and sit still. You're doing stuff. So trying to do that with your life, that's a hard thing. And the guys I know who have struggled, they seem to be the ones who transitioned
Yeah,
out and
yeah,
didn't have
that's
not just the
perfect.
next thing,
Right.
but the next 10 things.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So tell everyone a little bit about your current gig and the biz and what you're doing.
Oh, so AS Meds is a really cool company. So we're solving a problem, which is pharmacy access. So if
Mm.
you look at the pharmacy market right now, and if you see what's going on with Walgreens and CVS and independent pharmacies, with no fault of their own, it's just tough for them. And you see about 30% of independent pharmacies are going to close in the next year. Walgreens and CVS are both unfortunately in the news about store closures, but patients still have to get medications. So, what we provide is the ability for somebody to go to their doctor's office and get handed a prepackaged bottle of medications right there. So, it's not trying to turn the doctor into a pharmacist, it's bringing the pharmacy to the doctor. It's a simple, very safe, very compliant solution. It
Hmm.
saves patients money, it eliminates that second trip, it gets patients compliant. It lowers overall healthcare costs because folks are taking the meds that they need to take, and it just makes life simple.
That's
Um,
brilliant. That is brilliant. I
I,
never like who would have thought? Why do we need these damn Walgreens? Why do I have to go to
well,
Walgreens? Right.
but before there were pharmacists and before there were pharmacies everywhere, you got your medications from the doctor, right? It was to take two of these and call me in
Huh.
the morning. So, what we're doing really focuses on cutting out middlemen. And I kind of say we're the Netflix of medications. So if you think about 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when Blockbuster was still the dominant place, you went there on a Friday, you picked up a movie, you got one for your sister too, and fought over what one the family would watch together. But
Mhm.
Netflix was able to beat Blockbuster because of the fact that they were able to bring movies to where the patients already were, right in their living room, right in
Yeah.
front of their TV. So what we're able to do is we're bringing medications right to where patients already are. Patients are already at their doctor's office. Why not get them their medication right there? Make the burden of getting the drugs lower. Um, there's not to say there's no role for a pharmacy. Like we don't do C2 medications,
Mhm.
controls like oxycodone and
Yeah,
hydrocodone.
yeah.
I don't think those belong in the doctor's office, but for the run-of-the-mill medications for a Z-Pak or a Tamiflu or
Yeah.
first course of
The most
atorvastatin.
common
Yeah.
20 or whatever. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it makes everybody's life easier, and it makes it easier for the patient to follow the doctor's orders and the doctor to do their job as a doctor.
But what are like the barriers to set that up? Like, what do you, I can't imagine how many, what hoops you have to jump through to get that done.
Every state's a little different.
Yeah.
The only two things that Texas and Massachusetts have in common is that you're not allowed to do physician dispensing, and they both had teams in the NBA Finals. But besides state regulations, the medications come prepackaged. There's a software that ensures accuracy, compliance, and reporting. It can do full adjudication to a payer, so it has all the capabilities that a pharmacy would. Operationally, it only takes about 2 minutes to do. So, from
Oh
a
my gosh.
standpoint,
Yeah.
it's incredibly low overhead and it's an incredibly low time investment, but you have a tremendous return on investment for both patient outcomes and patient satisfaction.
Are you adding more revenue to the doctor's offices now or no?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It
So the
depends on the
pharmacy.
model, but in
Yeah.
every case, the doctor's going to come out financially better for having done it.
Yeah. Are you gonna getting on the radar of like the big lobbies from CVS and all these big pharmacy chains or no, they're gonna
You
come
know,
at,
uh, it'll be a good problem to have when I get there
yeah,
one day, but the payers are agnostic to us because they view us as, and we truly are, another chain pharmacy in the
yeah,
network.
yeah,
So when
yeah,
I
yeah.
when I started in the industry about a decade ago, there were 75,000 pharmacies nationwide. It's down to 72,000 pharmacies. And there's
Wow.
probably going to be another 1,000 to 1,500 that close next year. So payers, or regardless of who's paying, if it's a payer, if it's an employer, the fact that we can actually get the meds to the patient and make sure that there's accessibility. They'd rather pay it to me versus pay
Of
it nothing.
course.
And we're
Everyone
the
wins.
we're the same
Yeah.
as a pharmacy, so
Yeah, I
we're
love
similar to a
that.
pharmacy and
Good for you.
that side of
Did
it.
you
Yeah.
figure this out? Or, like, are you the
Oh
only one?
no,
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 other
no,
people
no, no,
you're
no.
just doing it.
We've been around since 1988. So we've been doing this for a really long time.
That's great.
People think that point of care dispensing is new. It is. It's much
Old.
older than that. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's just relatively unknown.
Yeah, yeah. How many people at your company?
We're over 200 now,
Wow, good for you, man. That's
and
great.
we have about 3,600 sites that we ship to. So the movement, the momentum, the awareness is growing, and
Yeah,
I always appreciate the opportunity to tell
yeah,
folks about it because it's like drug commercials advertise to patients and say, ask your doctor about X, Y, and Z. Well,
yeah.
next time you go to the doctor, ask them about getting your meds from them.
Absolutely, man. I love it. This is awesome. I know you got a hard stop in a few minutes, so I want to be respectful. Do you have any final bit of advice for these veterans, transitioning service members who are just trying to find their way in corporate America and
Mhm.
and land at a position like what you have, where they can feel good about what they're doing every day and get compensated well and
Yeah, I'd have a couple things. The first thing is same thing that you had in the military. There's physical courage and moral courage. So no matter what you do, make sure you're maintaining the moral courage. Sometimes saying the thing that should be said that nobody wants to hear is
yeah,
harder than returning fire when you're getting shot at. It's two different things.
yeah,
So, never forget the standard that you upheld. And then the second piece is service doesn't end when you get out. So hopefully you can find a job that not only puts food on your family's table, but when you go to bed at night, you have a clean conscience.
yeah,
And regardless of what industry you're in, there's a way to do it. And regardless of where you work and, policies that may be outside of your control, just like in the military, you can still do the right thing. And then I think the final thing is, Mark Twain said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. Well, leadership is universal. Mission planning is universal. Eventually, you'll get to the point where your tactical level experience as a junior officer or NCO or platoon leader no longer equates. The most people I had in the military was 40. I have over 200 right now. So
hmm,
I can't give it a one-to-one comparison anymore. So I've had to evolve. But
yeah,
those fundamental lessons are truly there. And they're taught to us from a young age, but they're not necessarily taught in MBA courses or business schools. So you will have a leg up because you've had what it means to take care of your folks and what it means to get the job done,
yeah.
beaten into your head from day zero.
Absolutely. Matt, thank you so much, man, for everything you've done for our country and congrats on your success with this amazing company, man. I wish you guys nothing but the best and appreciate you sharing your story today.
I appreciate you having me. This was great. And thank you for helping us get the word out on point of care dispensing.
All right.